So now that we have some database tables to put some data into, let's put some data in them. Now, if you look at the course resources for this lecture, you'll see a file called inserts.sql.zip. And not surprisingly, I'm going to ask you to download that, unzip it, and open it up in your favorite text editor. And when you do, you'll see exactly what's on the screen here. 4 insert statements. We're going to insert into authors, genres, books, and books genres. So select all of that text, copy it, switch to Beekeeper Studio, make sure you're looking at an empty query tab, so if there's something in here, delete it. Then paste in the contents that we just copied, select all, and run the selection. And when we do that, we'll see that we have things in authors now. So we have Stephen King and Mark Twain. We have 6 books, all by Stephen King. And as you can see, author ID is a foreign key that points to ID 1 in the authors table, which is Stephen King. Then we have books genres. And here you can see that one book can have multiple genres. So book ID 1 has genre IDs 6 and 4. And in the genres tables, we see that 6 is horror and 4 is thriller. Okay, so we have some content in there. Now let's go look at that books.go file that I asked you to download and put into your project folder. So over here in the back end of our project, back end code, in the internal folder, data folder, we have that books.go file. And this is a very straightforward file. So at the top, I have my types, and there's one for book, and you can see that each of the entries here corresponds to the values in the database, with the exception of genres, which is a slice of type genre, and then we have genre IDs, which is a slice of int. And we're doing that, as you'll see in a little while, when we're displaying the books in the front end, I want to be able to filter them by genre. And it's convenient to have a list of the IDs, or a slice of the IDs, for the genres for a particular book. So we have a book type and we have the JSON description fields over here. When we don't have genre IDs, I'm omitting it when it's empty, okay? And then if we go a little bit further down, we have our author type, and that's very, very simple. The genre type is very, very simple. And I don't need a type for books genres. That's just a lookup table that tells me what genres are associated with a given book. So we actually don't require a type for that. Then we have some very straightforward database functions. And there's no surprises here at all. There's a simple select statement. And all this select statement for get all does is get all of the books, read each row into the variable, a slice of pointer to book. And then after I'm done getting the books, but before I actually append that to the slice, the current row of my rows variable, I actually go and get the genres for the book. And I have to do that a few times, so I made that its own function. And we'll look at that in a bit. Down here, there's one get all paginated. Assuming that we have 100,000 books in the database, you don't want to try to display 100,000 at a time. So this is virtually identical to the get all function that I just looked at, but it also accepts 2 parameters. What page of the results are we looking at, and how big should that page be? So page and page size. And of course, these are translated into limit and offset in our SQL query. And we'll look at this when we actually begin paginating our results, okay? So very simple function there. Get one by ID gets one book by its ID. So it gets the book, then it gets down here the genres for the book by calling that genres for book function that we'll be looking at before too long. Get one by slug does exactly the same thing, but instead of looking up the book by ID, it looks it up by slug. So at the top of this file, we've imported github.com/mozillaazg/go slugify. So we'll have to go get that, okay? So make sure you copy this, go to your terminal and type go space get space and then paste in that result. And then you'll go get that necessary package. And all that does is it takes the title of the book, whatever it may be, so Salem's Lot, for example, and it converts it into something that can be safely displayed as part of a URL. So spaces become hyphens, punctuation is dropped entirely. Very simple package, okay? And we're using that down a little bit later. So we have get by ID, we have get one by slug, then we have genres for books. This is the function that I have called twice already. And all it does is it accepts one parameter, the ID of the book in question, and it returns a slice of genres and a slice of ints. So down here, I do the query, then I get my rows, and then I populate my variable, which is /genres up here in line 243 with each row in the result set. And I also append to the variable genre IDs, which is a slice of ints, the ID for the current iteration. And then I return both slices and potentially an error. Okay? Insert inserts one book into the database, and it takes one argument of type book. So it's just an insert statement. And then we update the genres. So if we actually have genre IDs, if the length of that slice of int is greater than 0, then we delete all the existing genres for that book, if there are any. And then we just iterate through the slice of ints and insert into book genres the book ID, the genre ID, created at and updated at. Very straightforward. Update just updates a book. No surprises there. Delete deletes a book. And all returns a list of all authors. And we'll be using that to populate a drop-down list, which you'll see before too long. So that's a brief overview of the books.go file. And there should be nothing in here that's surprising to you at all. Okay? So let's move on and get started working on displaying the list of books.